My name is Ebenezer, and I'll be the one to lead you through this particular lesson. Um, we're going to study on how to write an IELTS bar chart question. And as you can see here, there's our question. So we'll be just going through it while I go through it step by step with you. So before you write any particular kind of IELTS essay, there are some kind of steps that you have to go through. First of all, you need to analyze the question. So you analyze the question first, and then you look out for the main features of the graph. Analyzing the question means that you are examining this whole question together with all the key parts of the question or the graph in order to have a full understanding of it. And after you are done, you need to look out for the main features of the graph. Those are the easily seen part of the graph that you have to talk about. These two simple steps are very much necessary when you are planning to write your essay. Don't skip them and don't rush to go and write. First of all, get time to understand the question, and then get time to also look out for the main ideas. You can spend up to 5 minutes to have very good analysis and also look out for the main ideas within the question. So in this lesson, I'm going to just take you through the whole planning process step by step, all right? And then we also work some practice question. This one, you just work on them, all right, as we go through. But before I start with that, you have to understand that before you write any kind of essay, your essay must be in 4 paragraphs, okay? So your essay should be in 4 paragraphs. You have 4 paragraphs, and the first paragraph of your essay should be the introduction. That is where you will tell your audience what the whole graph is about. And we do that by writing the question in our own words, or rewriting the question in our own words. So you need to understand all part of the question in order to know exactly what to tell the audience about what your graph is about. How we do it is that we make sure that all the key ideas that within the question still remains in it, so that the people who are actually listening or reading it will still understand what exactly the question is about. The second paragraph will be the overview, and the overview is the summary of your main features. So after getting all the main features, you summarize everything together in about 1 or 2 sentences. So in the overview, you summarize everything together. You don't write the key ideas there or the detailed features there. You don't write the details of those features there. You just summarize everything, right? You just write a summary of the whole thing, and then that will be all. So you leave the details in this paragraph 3 and 4. All right, you just write all the details in the paragraph 3 and 4. So if you take the first main features that you got, you just have to write them, and then the second main feature that you also got, you also have to write them in detail here in the main body paragraph. So that is the 4 body paragraph system that we are going to use. So now that we've been able to get all these tools, we know that we're going to start with our analysis first, then we look out for the main ideas, and then we write our essay in 4 paragraphs. As stated, these 2 steps are very important in your planning system before you start writing. So we look at our practice question here. All right, so let's read our practice question. It states that the charts, so this is definitely a bar chart, okay? You can see bar charts here, right? So if you don't know the types of questions, you can reflect on our second lesson, our previous lessons. You can just go through and you find the types of questions. So this is a bar chart, and you can see instead of the charts below, the reason it has written charts is because there are 2. So the charts below show what UK graduates and postgraduate students who did not go into full-time work did after leaving college in 2008. So in 2008, there were some graduate and postgraduate students, all right, who actually left school. So after they have graduated, and all those postgraduate students did not go into full-time work, so they did not get themselves like employed, or maybe they did not get a full-time work, you understand. So apart from full-time work, aside the full-time work, they did some things after they left college. Aside the full-time work, they did some things after they left college. Remember, we are talking about the graduates and postgraduate students. So two different sectors, or two different categories of students. We have students, but there are some who are graduates and postgraduate ones, and they did not go into full-time work. So they are asking that what did they do after leaving the college? And this is in the year 2008. All right, so now we have understood the question itself. All right, let's see. So we just have to, so this is the question. It stated that the chart below shows what UK graduates and postgraduate students who did not go into full-time work did after leaving college in 2008. So after we've read our question, what we need to know is that first step that we need to take is to analyze the question. So we are going to look at how we can analyze this question. Right, so we stated that before you can analyze any question, the analysis will help you to have a full understanding of the information within the question, and we don't want to lose any kind of information. So there were some set of questions that we needed to ask ourselves. All right, so our first question is that what is the graph type, or what graph are we looking at? Right, if you look at the picture, we know that this is a bar graph, right? We know that this is a bar graph. Okay, two different bar graphs. And what is the question talking about, or what is the whole issue about? It's about graduate and postgraduate students who did not actually enter into full-time work and what they did after school. So we have that kind of idea. So we know that we can look at this one and see that this chart is about what UK graduate students and postgraduate students who did not actually go into full-time work did after leaving college. So the question is actually about those who left college and what they did beside going to full-time work. Okay, students who actually left college and what they did beside going into full-time. So we know that, right? Then we can look at the topic. We look at the topic. What is the topic talking about? It's talking about the destination of UK graduates. So instead of saying what they did, you use the word destination. So the destination of UK graduates, the first one, excluding full-time work in 2008. And the second one is about destination of UK postgraduates, excluding full-time work in 2008. So we look at their destination, where they are right now, or what they are doing right now, the number of those and what they are doing. So that is the topic. So this is a topic. You can see first topic, second. So the topics are the ones on top, so we know what the topic is. All right, so who are those involved? What are the variables we are dealing with here? We have two variables. We have the graduates and postgraduate. They are the two different variables we are dealing with here, and those are the variables we are comparing. Nevertheless, we still have some pieces here where they are actually like the part-time work, voluntary work, further study actually, and those who are unemployed. Here the same thing for part-time work, voluntary, further study, and unemployed students. Okay, so we have, for these two variables, we have graduates and postgraduate, and where they are, four different destinations. We have the part-time, those who are in part-time job, those who are in voluntary work, those who have actually furthered their education, and those who are unemployed, both graduate and postgraduate students. So we have these two people involved under four different categories. Okay, so we have the two variables under four categories. So those who are involved are the graduate and postgraduate students, and we have them in four different categories or four different places. Where was this particular information taken from, and where the place that we are dealing with here is in the UK, right? So we are talking about the UK graduates, so students in the UK. And then we have when, at what time. said in 2008, 2008. Apart from this one, we don't have any other year, so just in 2008. Okay, now after dealing with bar graph and bar graph, after asking all these questions, there are some other information that you need to also know, like the information on the horizontal line. So if you look at the horizontal line here and also the horizontal line here, you can see that this horizontal line holds the information, holds the 4 places that these students are: those who are in part-time work, those who are in voluntary work, further study, and also unemployed. So we have these 4, the same thing for the postgraduate as well. So on the horizontal line, we have the destination. Okay, so it holds the 4 different destinations that these students are. And the vertical line information, what does it hold? It holds the number of graduate students, the first one, and this one holds the number of postgraduate students. So the vertical line actually holds the number of students who are in those different categories. So it's from 500 to 1,000, all this one. The first one is from the graduate student from 0 to 30,000, from 0 to 30,000, while the postgraduate from 0 to 3,000. Okay, so the greatest number, or the highest, the peak was 3,000, while this one was actually 30,000. Okay, so we have that information, that the vertical line actually holds the number of students who are within those particular category. What is the unit of measurement here? So we know that the number of people. Okay, so the number of students. Okay, so that is it, just numbers of students, the number of students in it. Okay, so you have been able to analyze this question. We have the full idea. What happens is that you now have a clear view of what the whole thing is about, and if you have to explain it in your own words or restate in your own words, it becomes very easy to go through. After analyzing the question, the next thing to do is to now look out for your main idea.
This is very necessary, because if you look at the question, it tells you that you should summarize the main features. All right, to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features, okay, and make comparisons where relevant. So it means that you don't have to write about everything. All right, you just have to get the main features, and then you pick about 2 or 3 key features depending on the one that you are having, and cover all the variables in there. Okay, so cover the 2 variables, but you can just pick about 2 or 3 features out of them, and then you can use it to write your work. So our practice question, before you get or look out for the main features, the first thing you should ask yourself is, what type of question am I looking at, depending on the timeline. Okay, so we have to look at the question and assess whether it's either a dynamic or a static graph. Okay, so if you have no idea of what I'm talking about concerning dynamic and static graph, you have to visit our previous lessons on how to get the main features, and then you know what I'm talking about. So we need to check whether our graph is a dynamic or static graph. If it's a dynamic graph, that means that we will have the chart having a timeline giving data from several different points in time. Okay, so it might be maybe from 2007 to 2008, but because this one is just in one particular year, which is 2008, so it means that all these important information were taken in one particular year. Okay, so we are just taking those who actually completed or left college in 2008. So it's only in 2008 graduates and 2008 postgraduates that we are dealing with. So it's only in just one particular year. For that reason, we know that our graph is a static graph. So we are dealing with a static graph. Okay, so when you are looking for the main feature, that is the first thing you need to ask yourself, what type of graph am I looking at? So what type of graph are we looking at? And we know that this is a static graph. And because we know that this is a static graph, there are a set of questions that we can use in order to find the main features when we are dealing with static graph. All right, so these are the set of questions that you can ask yourself when you are dealing with static graph. So you can ask yourself these kind of questions when you are dealing with static graph. The first question is, you have to look out for the overall highest. So what is the overall highest? Remember, we said that static graph, what you do is that you need to compare the variables. So we have 2 different variables here. We have the graduates and then we have the postgraduates, right? And then under that, we have four different categories. We have the part-time, voluntary, further study, and unemployment for both of them. So we can compare them and look at the highest. So as you can see here, the highest among all of them was the graduate students who actually furthered their education. In both, we have those who further the education. Furthering the education is their utmost priority. You get it? So we can see that furthering education is the utmost priority of those students, either the graduates or postgraduates. So we have recorded the highest overall for the graduate student. But in all, we can see that in both stages, the students intended to further their education instead of going for a full-time work. So furthering education is the one that was the overall highest. And then in both students, okay, in both category of students, the graduate and postgraduate. Now the lowest, or which one recorded the least number of people, and then we can see that the least number of people were those who actually took on voluntary work, especially the postgraduate students, were just 345. Okay, so just 345 students, but here we can say 3,500. Okay, so in both we can see that they did not actually enjoy taking on voluntary work. Okay, so both students, either the graduate or postgraduate, did not like to take voluntary work. So it's one major thing that we can also record. Aside that, we can see here that are there any exceptions? Particularly, I can't see any exception here. I can only see the high and the low, but it seemed that all of them had the same thing. If you take the further education, it was the highest, followed by the part-time education, right? And then we can have those who were unemployed, and then the final one was the voluntary. So that's how the stages was in both of them. All right, but we can see here any similarity. All right, some similarities I see, actually not an actual similarity though, but if you look at the unemployed as compared to the part-time workers, they are almost the same. All right, so there is no clear difference. So the number is almost the same for the unemployed graduates and that of the part-time workers. They are almost the same number, right? So that is some of the similarity I'm seeing here. So let's just write those answers down and look at what we have now. All right, let's check the answers. So the first one was the highest. So we stated that the overall highest were those who entered into further education, but we can see that it was the graduates who were actually utmost, right? So here it was written that most of the students furthered their education after school, which is right for both the graduate and postgraduate. They like to further their education. What about the lowest? So we stated that it was those who actually entered into voluntary work. So few of the students in both categories took on voluntary work. All right, so we have that answer there as well. There was no exception. So let's move on to similarities. In the similarity, we saw that with the graduate students, they were almost the same for the unemployed and also the part-time workers. So almost the same number of unemployed graduate students also took on part-time work. Okay, so almost the same number of the graduate students, unemployed graduate students also took on part-time work. So almost the same, right? And then direct difference. We want to look at the direct difference. And then we saw that the number of unemployed students or graduate students were about 10 times more than those who were postgraduate. So the number of unemployed graduates were about 10 times more than those who were not working as postgraduates. Right. So these questions has now helped us to answer, and we have now we've got all the key features that we need. So what we do is that we now put together all those key features and then write our answer down. So I'm going to write about 2 or 3 main features, and we'll use that to go on and finish our essay. Right. So out of the main features, out of all those points that we got, we just have to write down these three main features. So the first one will be most of the students, we just saw that most of the students furthered their education after work, and a few of them actually took on voluntary work. So in both category, we just saw that most of the students furthered their education, while few number of them actually took on voluntary work. And we also saw that the number of unemployed graduates were about 10 times more than those who were actually not working as postgraduates. Okay, so we just have those two down. So what we do is that have the general trend. All right, so the general trend that we have selected, we just use it as a starting point for our essay, and then we'll go and add more details to it. Just remember that you just have 20 minutes to finish this question, so you don't have to write more elaborated things on it. Okay, so you have just 20 minutes and you just need to write about 150 words, so you won't be able to include a lot of details. So just keep it short, keep it simple, and also write the most salient parts of the essay. You have to remember that our paragraphs are four. First paragraph, introduction. Second paragraph, overview. Third paragraph, main detail one or main feature one, and then fourth paragraph, main feature two. So let's write our two basic features down, and then we use that one to finish with our overview. So out of those three features, just combine them into two, and then we've merged everything together just to get a very good overview for our essay. So you can see from here, I just merged the two together. Most of the students furthered their education after school, while a few of them in both categories took on voluntary work. The number of unemployed graduates were far more than those who were not working as postgraduates. So we can use these two to write a very good essay. So let's start with the introduction. So your first paragraph is the introduction, right? An introduction means that you have understood the question, so you are just going to tell your audience that is what the whole essay is about. So let's read this question first. So the question states that the charts, two of them below, shows what UK graduates and postgraduate students who did not go into full-time did after leaving college in 2008. So we are going to rewrite it in our own words. And as I told you, you have to tell us exactly what type of graph you are looking at. And here is bar chart. So it's written as the bar charts display what UK graduate and postgraduate students did after leaving university in 2008, not considering those working full-time. Okay, not considering those working full-time. So now we have understood that this is the whole thing about the essay, and that's what you need to do. That's all about the introduction. After writing the introduction, your next one is the overview. So in the second paragraph, which is your overview, what you should be doing is that you will report the main features that you can see in the graph. All right, so you only give the general information that you had on the graph. Okay, you don't give details. The details will come later in the essay. Okay, but you have to be making comparisons, and your overview should cover the variables. And as we said, the two major variables here are the graduates and postgraduates. So you have to say something about both of them. It can be about two or three features. Okay, you can just state it in it. Okay, so this is where you write your major trend or the general trend, and the details will come into it. But when we were looking out for the features, we had three main features and we summarized into two. So let's look at the two main features that we used. So from the graph, we had two main features. First of all, we said that most of the students furthered their education, all right, they had to go on further study after school, right? While a few of them, or few number of them, actually took on voluntary work. That is on both category. And also we also saw that the number of unemployed graduates were far more than those who were not working as postgraduates. So these are the two major things that we saw in the graph. And what you need to do is that you have to form the ideas into about 2 or 3 sentences. All right. And that will be all that you have to do. Make sure that there are comparisons. You have written about simple sentences, written some complex sentences in it. Don't elaborate vocabulary or any grammar at this point. The details will come in the major features. So let's combine these two and write a very good overview. So from the key feature that we had, this will be our overview. Let's read. Most of the students furthered their education after school, while a few of them in both categories took on voluntary work. There were far more unemployed graduates than those who were not working as postgraduates. So this will be our overview. As you can see here, we have been able to cover those who were graduating on postgraduates. Okay, we've compared both of them. So that's all you need to do with the overview. And after that, we'll go into the main body paragraph. Okay, so in that stage, you're going to go into details on each of those key features that we brought up. So if you are writing the essay, take it like this. The introduction is where you tell the people what the whole essay is about. The overview is your summary. You are telling them that at the end of my research, I saw that this is what happened and that is what happened. There were more people who were unemployed as graduates than those who were unemployed as postgraduates. Okay, so in the detail paragraph, that's you're going to pick each one of them and explain into detail. You're going to tell them that what I said in the summary, this is what I mean, and that's where you add all your facts and figures. Okay, so let's go on to the main body paragraph 1. Remember that this is our first paragraph, that is the introduction. That will be paragraph 1. Okay, and the overview will be a paragraph 2. So what you do is that we're now moving on to the paragraph 3, which will be our main feature 1. We're going to pick the main features. We're going to deal with those who were more and those who were few, talking about the furthering education compared to the voluntary work. All right, so with the main feature 1, we will take our first feature and explain it in detail. Okay, so we stated that in our first main feature, we said that most of the students furthered their education after school, while a few of them in both categories took on the voluntary work. That is what we said. So we are going to just explain it with details and add facts and figures to them. So we said that nearly 30,000 graduates went on to study further. Okay, so as you can see, it's 29,665 graduates. Okay, so it's nearly 30,000. So nearly 30,000 graduates went on to study further, greatly outnumbering their counterparts. Okay, so counterparts, which is the postgraduate students. Okay, you have to be specific. So the counterparts here, the postgraduate student, counting just 2,725. So you can see here, you have the 29,000, you have 2,725. Make sure that whatever thing you are writing the correct figure. Okay, write the correct figure. And if you are making any comparison, make sure that you are using the correct figure for it. Okay, so let's read it again. Nearly 30,000 students went on to study further, greatly outnumbering their counterpart, which is the postgraduate student, counting just 2,725. Albeit less, most of the postgraduates still studied further after school than they did for all the other sections. So though they were less than those who were in the graduate section, they still like to further their education than to take on voluntary work, part-time work. Okay, so all that is what it means. Now, after saying this one, we move on to the second category, which is those that were few. So you say that while a few of them took on voluntary work. So let's look at the voluntary work. Voluntary work in comparison was the least common step for both graduates and postgraduates, with only 3,500 graduates. Yeah, so voluntary, we have 3,500 graduates here going that route, and 345 of the postgraduates doing same. So you can see here, just comparing further education to that, the highest and the lowest. So we just compared both of them now. All right, so let's look at the next section. So this is what you have to do in the main feature. You have to make sure you are specific. You are not giving any relevant or incorrect or inappropriate sentences. You have to stick to the values and make sure you provide the figures to support what you have written. So this will be the final part of the essay. We are going to write the fourth paragraph, okay, which is the main body paragraph 2. If you remember, we said that in our second sentence, we said that there were far more unemployed graduates than those who were not working as postgraduates. Okay, so those who were unemployed as graduates were more than those who were unemployed as postgraduates. You can see here 16,235 compared to 1,625. Okay, so let's write it in detail. So, in respect to the unemployment rate, students who were not working post graduation, so that is after graduation, so that is for this one. All right, so in respect to the unemployment rate, students who were not working after graduation, so that is for this post graduation, numbered 16,235, which was relatively similar to their colleagues who took on part-time work after school. So if you check the 16,200, it's quite similar to the 17,735. So we stated that which was relatively similar to their colleagues who took on part-time work after school, accounting for 17,735. So we now compared this to that. Okay, and we went on to the second sentence. However, the number of unemployed graduates was about 10 times higher than the postgraduate in the same state. So if you take the unemployed graduates 16 and then unemployed postgraduate 1,600, okay, so it tells you that about 10 times, okay, 10 times higher than those in the same state, which is the postgraduates. Aside the UK graduates and postgraduates, we've included part-time, voluntary, further education, unemployed, to be able to cover all the four variables, and that is very important that you do. And we have been able to compare them to as well. So let's put all of them together as one essay and read it out. This is the full essay, a full bar graph question, and as you can see here, we have the full essay written, and there's 178 number of words in it. Okay, so we've covered the number of words that we need. So let's read it through. So the bar chart display what UK graduate and postgraduate students did after leaving university in 2008, not considering those working full-time. Most of the students furthered their education after school, while a few of them in both categories took on voluntary work. There were far more unemployed graduates than those who were not unemployed as postgraduates. Nearly 30,000 graduates went on to study further, greatly outnumbering their counterparts, which is the postgraduate students, counting just 2,725. Albeit less, most of the postgraduates did still studied further after school than they did for all the other sections. Voluntary work, in comparison, was the least common step for both graduates and postgraduates, with only 3,500 graduates going that route and 450 of the postgraduate doing same. In respect to the unemployment rate, students who were not working post graduation numbered 16,235, which was relatively similar to their colleagues who took on part-time work after school, accounting for 17,735. However, the number of unemployed graduates was about 10 times greater than the postgraduates in the same states, 16,235 and 1,625 respectively. There is no conclusion in writing tax 1, so don't add a conclusion to it. So this is how you write a bar chart question. I would like you to just go over it and try to study it. Okay, just go over everything, know the dynamic and static graph, how to also work on them, the type of questions to ask, and also how to get the main features. All right, so this is all that we will learn today. We move on to the next lesson, and I'll meet you there. Bye.